Okay, I'm going to stand aside so it doesn't scream. Okay, well, if I'm up, I should use my notes. So, my name is Val Burnett. I am the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions here at Mills College. I am very excited to be welcoming you all to Mills, both individually and as members of the Phi Theta Kappa organization. Mills, as you may know, is a small private liberal arts college for women. We're here in Oakland, California. We've been in Oakland since 1871, educating and empowering women for over 160 years. The reason that I feel that Mills and Phi Theta Kappa is such a wonderful collaboration is because the students at Mills are very high academic caliber kinds of students. They're interested in the work that they're doing, and they're here because they want to be here and they want to be learning. Mills is also a very transfer-friendly institution. We bring in probably about 30% of each incoming class is made up of transfer students. And when we're out there looking for transfer students, reaching out to Phi Theta Kappa seemed like a really natural thing to do because Phi Theta Kappa students are very academically involved, very engaged in their education, and very dedicated to moving forward and transferring to an institution like Mills. I want to talk a little bit more about myself and why I particularly enjoy working with transfers and Phi Theta Kappa students. I was a transfer. I went to West Valley Community College and De Anza Community College before transferring into Mills. I did not know about Phi Theta Kappa when I was at De Anza, otherwise I would have been working with Charlie, which would have been phenomenally exciting. And when I got to West Valley, I ended up joining Alpha Gamma Sigma. When I got to this position and they asked if I'd be interested in reaching out to Alpha Gamma Sigma and Phi Theta Kappa students, I got very, very excited because of those personal connections. I've been working with Phi Theta Kappa for about 3 years now. During that time, we began to use College Fish to reach out to students, to both send emails and letters to students and also to advisors. We've been able to develop a specific Phi Theta Kappa scholarship. There's actually a flyer about that in your folder. The left-hand side of that packet is all about Mills. That flyer about the Phi Theta Kappa scholarship tells you a little bit about our general scholarships for transfers, which go up to $15,000 a year. And then the specific Phi Theta Kappa scholarship, which allows students to earn up to $4,000 additional per year. So transfers coming into Mills who are members of Phi Theta Kappa can earn right off the bat up to $20,000 a year in merit scholarship. I think that's a strong indication of how serious we are about recruiting the high caliber students that come out of Phi Theta Kappa. Another thing that we do is we waive the application fee waivers for all students who are members of PTK. If they show proof of PTK, they do not have to pay the $50 application fee. Now, those of you who are advisors or who are not advisors, we've also put a Mills College fee waiver in your packet. That's because we know that you may be working with or know students that are strong academically, that maybe haven't made it into PTK just yet, that you'd like to encourage to consider Mills. And so we've given you that fee waiver so that you can pass that on for students that would be interested in doing so. What else have we done? We've attended the convention. The International Convention has been extremely exciting. Last year we were very glad to bump ourselves up to attending as a sponsor. We were able to sponsor the Nevada, California, I keep switching them, regional meeting. We were able to participate in the marketplace. And I think we got a much more in-depth look at the breadth of activities that Phi Theta Kappa students are involved in. It was very impressive on multiple levels, and I'm looking forward to doing that again. We've also begun to do chapter visits. Advisors, students, if you're interested in having us come out to visit your chapter, please give us a call and let us know. We were able to visit Kenyatta and Skyline. And in this past year, we were also able to get out to Sacramento City College. We weren't able to make the chapter visit there, but we were able to, since my mic has gone out, I'm just going to project. We weren't able to do the chapter visit out at Sacramento City College, but we were able to, through the advisor, email all of the students at Sac City, and it really increased the number of Phi Theta Kappa students that showed up for our presentation and had questions about Mills. So between chapter visits, advisors assisting with communication, we've really begun to reach out much more meaningfully to the Phi Theta Kappa groups. I want to continue doing that. I don't want that to stop. In fact, I'd like to increase that. So if you would be interested in having me come out to do a chapter visit, please let me know. I talked with Sal. He was saying that they do a really big induction ceremony. I would be more than happy to come and help your students celebrate at their induction ceremonies. Anything that you feel would be appropriate, run it by me and we can have a conversation about it. The other thing that I'm interested in doing is bringing students to our campus. How many of you have been to Mills before this visit? Excellent. How many of you, whether this is your first or your second time, were really struck with the fact that Mills is just an absolutely beautiful space? It's a stunningly wonderful place to be, and when I can get students to come and visit Mills, I find that they are far more likely to apply. And so, in a sense, I would like to encourage you to bring people here because I think it's going to make them want to go here. If you would like to bring your chapter for a visit, if you'd like to have them sit in on classes, eat lunch with current students, I'm more than happy to arrange that. Just let me know when you'd like to do it, and we'll get it going. If you have something else in mind, for example, I've been talking with faculty about the possibility of running some kind of academic engagement thing, maybe some kind of a science class or a poetry workshop that would be open to honors students like the Phi Theta Kappa students. If you've got a group that would be interested in doing something like that, it doesn't have to be all Mills. It can be about how Mills could work for you. Definitely let me know about that as well. If you have any questions about the admissions process, I am the reach out person for that. I do have my cards over here on the handout table, so please feel free to pick one up. What I'd like to do right now is introduce a couple of Mills staff members who are going to talk a little bit more about what Mills has to offer. Brian, come on up, you're next. Brian's going to talk a little bit about the importance of transfers at Mills. Brian is the Vice President of Enrollment Management, which means that he actually coordinates not just the Office of Undergraduate Admission, but also the Registrar's Office. He may end up speaking a little bit about the work that we're doing in terms of development of articulation agreements and major articulation agreements. But he has been at Mills since August. His commitment to bringing in transfers has been very demonstratively strong thus far. I hope you enjoy talking with him.
Skip it? Looks like it's skip it.
It comes and goes.
Okay. I can probably project. I apologize. My voice is off this morning. I'm having an allergy attack this morning, but we'll try and go without the microphone. So yes, good morning. My name is Brian O'Rourke. I've been with Mills here for about a year, and there's a couple things I want to talk about this morning, and really sort of reinforce, as Val said, the idea that transfer students are a big part of what we do here at Mills. Those of you that are particularly familiar with the higher education landscape in California and Nevada, a lot of private colleges and universities sort of use the transfer population as a means of sort of backfilling enrollment and different reasons that are more sort of institutional driven. We enroll transfer students at large numbers because we very much believe in the transfer student experience and the opportunity to provide students that have sort of gone what is sort of the non-traditional route, although I'm not sure there is a traditional route these days, an opportunity to finish that degree. And so much so that 25% of our students are actually resumer students, or what we consider adult learners, students that have been away from education for a period of time and come back and finish that degree here on our campus. But I maybe want to start off by talking about a little bit, or just touching on or acknowledging the importance of what we do. And I mean that in terms of the higher education landscape overall. I don't know that there's been a more interesting or more challenging time to be working in higher education in the United States. In the sense that we know the global conversation right now is discussing the value of even having a college degree, right? We've seen it in Time, we've seen it in Newsweek, CNN, MSNBC. They're all talking about, is it worth it to go to college? And I think there's actually some pros and cons to having that conversation and having that debate. We sort of automatically always sort of see the labor statistics that talk about the amount of money you can earn over a lifetime as you develop advanced degrees, and I think that's important. But as educators, we know it's more important to talk about the experience of going to college, right? And the benefits. And not just having that degree on your resume for earning potential, but the experience of the interaction with faculty and other students, and the personal growth and development, and the engagement that occurs in the classroom, and what individuals and students take with that for the rest of their life. And to me, that's the importance, and that's the conversation that we should be having nationally about the value of education. That's where I say this becomes a pro in terms of actually having that debate or having a conversation about why go to college. Because it does force the conversation to speak to value, right? And particularly for transfer students that are starting at one institution for whatever reason, be it finances, academics, geographic convenience, whatever. And then making the decision at some point, right, whether or not to continue on with that college experience. I think it's good, and I think it's appropriate, and I think it's important that we're talking about value. And we're talking about, particularly as a four-year institution and a four-year private institution, what is the value of that experience for students? And that's honestly why I came to Mills. Because I believe that Mills College is indicative and representative of what that value can be. For a lot of reasons. First of all, we enroll very sort of serious students. Okay? Each year in all of the national data and the surveys where we survey students nationwide and here at Mills College, every year we are considerably higher with our students in terms of responses of our students saying they feel more academically engaged, more excited in the classroom, better connection with their faculty. Consistently, Mills students are telling us that they're here because they're serious students. And that starts to speak to the value of that education. It starts to speak to students that come to Mills are here because they want to be part of the conversation. Our students question. We don't enroll students that take anything really at face value. It's a big part of our campus identity. Is we want to enroll women who are going to come to campus and question what we're saying and why we're saying it, and lead to some really incredible conversations in the classroom. And that's why this relationship is so important to us. To work with you all and to work with Phi Theta Kappa students, to bring them to campus, to encourage them to be part of this discussion, and to come here and be serious students. There's also a logistical component that comes with value, right? And that's the cost. And that's the objective of completing the degree and the value of that. We're very proud of our ability for students to come in as second-year students or third-year students, as transfer students, and be able to finish in 4 years. We also, speaking directly to value, have continued to develop accelerated programs where students can come in as third-year transfer students, spend 2 years on our campus and get a bachelor's degree, or spend an extra year on our campus and go through our accelerated program for our bachelor's and master's degree programs. We very much believe that if a student is going to transfer as a junior, and she's going to have to spend more than 2 years on our college campus, that she's walking away with 2 degrees when she does it. That's something very specifically when we start to speak to value. Val mentioned the considerable merit scholarships that we have for Phi Theta Kappa students, and I also think it's important to reinforce that we have considerable need-based aid as well. And we all know part of the value conversation. Yeah?
I wanted to ask, because it says you have to go to classes full-time to get someone's scholarships. I wanted to ask, what resources do you have available for people that are disabled that might prevent them due to their health condition to take too much because of the stress level of full-time classes? So I wanted to ask what you have in regards to, like, you know, the students that are disabled and they can't take the full load, but they need financial assistance. What do you provide?
That's actually an outstanding question. I'm going to defer some of that answer to our Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students, who's going to speak next. But in terms of the financial assistance, there is some aid available for students that are non-full-time students, but it is very limited, and we sort of examine that on a case-by-case basis. And we define full-time as 3.5 units on our campus, which can theoretically be as few as 3 classes. So we try and provide that flexibility as well. So a full course load for us is 3.5 units. Okay, so sort of speaking to the full-time, part-time, you're right, the demands of a full-time course load. And then in terms of student services, I'm going to defer to Eloise, because that's her area of expertise. So there we go.
And we'll also have questions and answer time later too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, absolutely. But again, overall, we offer need-based assistance as well as the merit assistance, and we try and we base our assistance, Mills Aid, on a package of total gift aid. Okay, so we start with the free money. So we look at Cal Grant, we look at Pell Grant, we look at the free money students are receiving, try and build our aid to augment that, and then we examine students needing to explore loans or work study. So we try and really focus on gift aid assistance as much as we can, again, in terms of managing that debt load, again, speaking of the value for the students. A couple specific things we're doing to sort of help the transfer process. We've begun a migration to our articulation evaluation online. So students will, partially by spring 14, but certainly by the time students are applying for fall 14, have the ability to submit transcripts and see how the courses will transfer to Mills. Right now, students have to wait until a little bit later on in the process before they're able to get a real strong understanding of the progress towards their degree. We want to move that process earlier for students and make that transition a little bit easier and easier to understand. I think some of you may already know, we also, Mills is on a Mills credit system. And so we are not on the semester hours system, so there's a transition or a translation of the units that occurs with that for transfer students as well. And we want to make sure we walk through the students through that process earlier as well and help them understand it. The reality is the progress towards degree stays the same. The courses transfer, it's just a matter of converting it to a different system that is sometimes confusing for students. So one of my priorities in terms of focusing on transfer students is to help facilitate that process. And we're also examining as a college the merits of moving to the more traditional semester hour system, in part because it helps transfer students understand the process and understand that transition to Mills a little better. The last thing I would say, again, I did mention the accelerated bachelor's and master's programs. We're also reevaluating how we do our financial aid for those programs. So not just to be able to provide students the opportunity to pursue those accelerated degrees, but also to for us to structure the financial aid so that we are financing students or assisting students as a 3-year experience, not 2 years of undergrad and 1 year of graduate work. So we're very much focused on transfer students right now, as Val said. I think it's important, particularly in the state of California. We know more and more students are going to be looking to transfer. And I think it's important that four-year institutions, particularly private schools, that we understand that, and then we be prepared to meet the needs of those students. And so that's really a focus here at Mills. And again, trying to find those students that are particularly academically engaged and we believe are a strong fit for our campus. So, yeah.
So, thank you, Brian.
Brian, before you leave, part of what Phi Theta Kappa does is for our speakers, we give them a little honorarium. So I have one for you. It was really difficult to find out what your likes and dislikes are. Apparently Brian likes to brew his own beer. But I couldn't find a brewery that would take him. So we had to give you something else instead.
I'm seriously impressed by your research.
Oh, what is it?
Absolutely.
What is it? Open it up. I want to take it.
And also, yes, after Eloise speaks, I'll be around to answer questions. Also, wow, I am incredible. This is like my all-time ultimate favorite candy. I know that doesn't make me think, but I'm going to probably finish these this week. You are so awesome.
They also have a gift card in there, and we gave you a Phi Theta Kappa pin.
Really unnecessary.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, Brian, Dean and sending you off on a tour. So Eloise Stiglitz is the Vice President for Student Life and the Dean of Students. She's just finishing off her very first semester here at Mills, so she's getting to know the student body and the way that Mills works. I think it's a wonderful perspective to have, still understanding the outside while really understanding the inside as well. She came to us from CSU San Marcos, and she, like myself, was a transfer student, so she understands your process too.
Thank you, Beth. I'm delighted to be here. I was thinking about being here. I was thinking about, you're all smart. But because you wouldn't be in Phi Theta Kappa if you weren't smart. But the skill of navigating transfer and integrating into a new four-year school is not necessarily the same skill and smarts as being smart in classes. And I see your head nodding. And I don't want to insult you in saying that, but I think it's an important thing to realize and to make a point. And to me, I think of it a little bit like playing tennis and playing racquetball. That if you start out playing racquetball, then you switch to tennis. If you think it's the exact same skill, you're going to hit a lot of balls into that net. And in fact, that negative transfer can even be more confusing and get in the way more of being successful. So while many students think about coming to four-year school and transferring, they think, I was successful at the community college, got good grades, I knew everybody, I know how it works, I don't need any, I can do it on my own. And that doing it on your own can be the biggest mistake in terms of integrating into a new school. And I know later on today you're going to be talking about college completion, and I think the key to completing a four-year degree is the process of integrating into the new school. I know that there's a wide range of people here, but I'd like you to take a few minutes and talk to somebody sitting next to you about what was it that you were most concerned about when you were transferring, or if you haven't transferred yet, what are you concerned about? If you're an advisor, what do you hear that students are concerned about? So just to kind of get a few minutes to get those concerns about that integrating into that new place, and then I'll ask for some of your thoughts. Talk amongst yourselves.
Do a 4-year, right, Jonathan?
What's the question?
The question was, what do you hear as the major concerns about integrating into the new four-year school? What are the concerns? What are you afraid of? Meeting people, being successful academically, getting lost. Talk amongst yourselves and then share with me.
Well, when I was doing my undergrad work, make friends because I'm dating
in and out of the thing.
Yeah. I had to try to be serious about it. Right. Because my own age, that's not what happened. I was advised this is a school I went to Northern University of Florida West, and I used to go to either chapter or when I was in the office.
You wrap it up in another minute or so, and then I'll ask for what you talked about.
How much debt can you usually expect to pay for a scholarship?
Okay, so what were those concerns you talked about? You looked like you were about ready to share a few minutes ago.
Well, I don't drive, for example, and neither does my friend Kate, so it's like for me, even though I'm trying to stay in the area, it's like I can't go really far, I can help move, there's a big concern of mine.
All those logistics, yeah, living logistics, which is a big piece.
And, you know, when I was doing my undergrad work at my university, it was the time of day I was going, most people were just out of high school, so be like, we're still acting like they're in these places, and you quick, and I just decided, well, I'm just going to be serious and not ingratiate myself anyway, and that way, I got better friends that way, you know, you make it easier to make friends when you need
And I think fitting in is another big issue. The age difference and difference in life experience, I think that is often one of the big concerns. Am I going to fit in this new place?
Yeah.
Thank you. Other concerns?
My concern isn't that being complicated to that, but, you know, we're just talking about college intensive and just not that because I had a 2-year degree in 1981 and I just finished 2 and 3 and my company so much. But at the time I couldn't, as much as support I couldn't now. But now I feel like, you know, when we go to a school, we have biggest concern first is every time I feel like I'm on a go for a degree, the colleges don't accept some of the courses. So I
It has been a long time.
so many courses and then what's there, it's like, well, that's what you do, like, oh, we don't take that, we don't do that. That's not-
So two concerns. One is the intensity of the courses, the challenge, and what will transfer. And that, you know, what will transfer is the kind of thing that Brian would address, but that is a big concern because you don't want to start from scratch and you want it to count. I can tell you, my husband went back to school after 52 years. No, 48 years. He graduated after 51 years. And he did go to a school that specialized in degree completion, but they did take his credits from like 150 years ago. And at 68, he got a degree. So it's never too late.
Well, I'm just going to repeat the question I said before, because it wasn't answered this is the appropriate time for it. It's just for disabled students, like, because I know that at community colleges, for disabled students, full-time would be 9 units as opposed to 12, because there's more barriers as far as reaching an education or ask. Does you also have something that's applicable as far as thinking yes, less units equal the same amount because there might be barriers in regards to that person's health that can affect success?
If somebody registers with our Disability Services SSD program, they work with the student and to figure out what is the best accommodation for that person, and that may be a reduced course load. Yes.
So and then would that reduce course load if that the ability to apply for certain scholarships was my concern, or do they get exempt from that because they have medical documentation?
I can't answer that. I don't know. Brian may
Sorry,
answer that.
The answer to your question is yes, that they would receive an exemption and be able to adjust.
Okay, so it's not like when you're disabled. I'm sorry, you have no
No.
excuse.
No, yeah, sorry, I thought, yeah, if it's that, yes. He said, yeah, sorry. If that is the accommodation, then we are able to adjust what is considered full-time status.
Okay, so that
Because that would be considered essentially a full-time student for you to be a full-time student.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I was like.
Okay, yes, it doesn't like you can't get there from here. Yeah.
And I can answer that question too, because I took a reduced course load. It didn't affect my financial aid. I still got my full scholarship, still got everything I need. So it does, if you're registered with SSD, you need a reduced course load. They do work with financial aid to get it for you.
Okay, that's what I was overall happy. Yeah.
Okay, so let me, I appreciate your,
I'd just like to pass some segue out.
let's get the segue at the end, okay? In fact, it's a good form of transportation, but we're going to do questions and answers at the end. I just wanted to get some of your input, because these are the things I'm going to be talking about. First one I want to talk about was just the physically moving, potentially, to go to a four-year school. Even if you stay in the same region, you're leaving behind. You're leaving behind friends and family, a familiarity. And if you come to live on the Mills campus, we are particularly supportive in our housing arrangements for transfer students. We have housing that particularly focuses on older students. We have for resumers. We have apartment living. We have family housing. So we have a lot of options for students who are not your typical 18 to 22-year-old student. And that does create a more comfortable environment where you have people that are like you. However, it's still different. If you were living at home or in your own apartment, now you've got some rules and regs. The flip side is you've got a more supportive, caring environment. It's easy to get to class. Your commute, I live on campus, the commute is next to nothing. It's a good deal, but it's structured, it's regimented, and even though we have a wonderful Res Life program that will support students, it's a different way of life. And that creates, I'm an older student, am I willing to adjust to having that kind of environment? And then the other piece of you think about first-year students leaving home and being homesick, and you think, I'm too old to be homesick. You're never too old to be homesick. Even if you go from South Bay to Mills, or even across from another part of Oakland even to Mills, you've got the familiarity. You've got the familiarity of your old community college. The resources there. You've got your old buddies there. You've got your local Starbucks. Those things that you're comfortable with, that it's amazing. I've moved a lot, and you kind of had this longing for what was familiar. And that can be homesick. And particularly if you leave a family and friends to come to school. We've had older students come and transfer to Mills and say, this is my time. I want to leave, I'll commute on the weekends, but I'm going to live on Mills because for me, that's the best way for me to be successful. One of the other changes, we talked a little bit about support processes. We have a lot of support here, but it's a different philosophy often than community colleges. My experience in community college is that there's often a little bit more hand-holding, and here, and just about any four-year school, there's a little bit more expectation of independence because we see another stage of transitioning into the work world, into the world out there. And so we encourage more empowerment, more independence, and that process sometimes can be a little disconcerting. And with the SI, you may miss what you used to have. The services are still there, but in a slightly different configuration. And that brings me to another challenge, which is what you talked about. The challenge of courses are more intense. They're more challenging. They're supposed to be. And in particular at Mills, like Brian mentioned, we have serious students here. Not that other schools don't, but we pride ourselves on our serious students who really want to change the world. They are here to get a degree with a purpose. They want to do something, and they're serious about their education. And I live on campus, and we always talk about where are the students in the evening. And what we've asked, we found out they go to bed early because they get up early because they got to study. And so the students here are very serious. So the work is hard. And I think sometimes it's particularly challenging for students who are the Phi Theta Kappa type of students who did well, and they say, I know I can do this. And so again, I'm prepared. Sometimes students are not prepared for that leap, that it is more challenging. But we have the resources to support you. And before I get to the resources, I want to talk about one other challenge. And that is, and I think this is one I've seen trip up so many community college transfer students, or even coming from a four-year school. The rules and regs, deadlines are different. So you think you know how to register, when to register, how to pay your bill, when to pay your bill, all those things, and when to drop a class, how to drop a class, and you discover, oops, I missed the deadline. In my old school, you had 3 weeks to drop. Here, it's only 2 weeks. And you didn't check, because you said, no, every school does it at 3 weeks. Those kinds of very small deadline rules and regs can really trip up transfer students. And so I think you particularly need to be paying attention to those kinds of things in that transfer. And that's part of integrating into the new environment. So, and then the next one is kind of alluded to, am I going to fit in here? Every school has its own culture. Mills, as somebody who is new to fitting into Mills, Mills has definitely its own culture. It's a women's college. That makes it somewhat different than any other co-ed school. And it's got a co-ed graduate program. So there's an interesting mix. It's a liberal arts college. It's a school that believes in social justice. It's a school that believes in, supporting the community, sustainability. There's a lot of values that run throughout the school. And those are important values to the community here. And the fitting in piece, and I think I can't underline enough, and I think the fact that you all are in Phi Theta Kappa tells me that you've gotten involved on your campus. And that involvement makes all the difference in the world. Because I don't think a college degree is just completing those courses. A college degree is really about a college education. And I underline the word education. And that education is a life-transforming experience. And you only get that by what you do outside the classroom. And that outside the classroom may be with your faculty or in other kinds of ways. But it is that outside the classroom that makes all the difference. So my first recommendation to you is to hit the ground running. And because you're only going to be there for 2 years. And before you know it, it's over. So hit the ground running and get involved. And whether you get involved in student government, the student newspaper, the student org that has to do with your major, like psychology, or a fun thing like the anime club or the student movie, it's a Japanese movie. I didn't know what it was either. The student movie club, or there's fun things that you can do, or you can get involved in recreation, going kayaking. You can get involved in the fitness center. And one thing wonderful about Mills, you can do athletics if you've never even played that sport before. You can walk on.
That's why we've got Sal with his football, men's football t-shirt.
Okay. Didn't even know we had them.
Notre Dame himself. I had a Mills t-shirt for our football.
Well, we have a small football team, but I think you can be the star. Still undefeated. Very cool.
What does Mills College compete with in football?
We don't have a football team. We have volleyball, swimming, crew, tennis,
Soccer.
cross country, and soccer.
Here's that.
Badminton? No.
It's a recreation, not a...
Recreation, not a class.
We have 48 different PE courses that you can get involved in. And then we have recreation, we have club sports, we're starting a softball team. We have, pardon me?
Do you have any college catalogs to look at?
College.
The catalogs are actually no longer printed. They're available online. Industry-wide, colleges are stopping the printing of catalogs. So the online version is available at www.mills.edu, and it's always the most up-to-date.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll take the questions later. I know there's so many questions, but I'll keep going. One of the things that Mills has, which is fairly unique, is we have a whole series of lounges. And many of our lounges really are places for that you all could get involved in. We have a resumer lounge, Mary Atkins resumer lounge, for our students who are over 23. We have a parenting lounge. Obviously, people are parents. We have a solidarity lounge for people of color. We have a commuter lounge for people who commute. And we have a graduate student lounge. Each one's pretty obvious. What they're for. And they're a place where you can hang out with like people, study, visit, drop your stuff off, and develop a sense of community within. And I can't say that Mills is a large community, but within the larger community. But I also, as I talked about earlier, would encourage each of you to step outside that comfort zone, leave your community, your lounge, and get to know other people besides that. But it is a wonderful home base for feeling supported. We are starting a transfer student center, resource center, and that will be a place that, particularly for transfer students of all ilks, to get support, guidance, information, and a place also just to hang out with other transfer students. We're in the process of starting that in a different building, and the building that my office is in, and we'll also support veterans, and because we've discovered that those are two groups of people that have their own unique concerns. I haven't talked about getting involved academically outside of class. Obviously, doing well in school, doing your homework, and it's all very important. But the other key importance is to reach out to your faculty outside the classroom, going to office hours and asking, how else might I get involved? Can I do some research with you? What kind of internship opportunities are there? What kind of service opportunities are there? How can I take what I'm learning and work at one of the nonprofits in the area? What can I do that can apply what I'm learning? And there's going to be wonderful opportunities for that. And again, one of those things that to start right off the bat, because so often it takes a while to arrange. So set your goals early. Think about what it is you want to get out of your experience as a transfer, even before you step foot in the door. And that way you can make that plan of how you want to be involved. But also, be willing to ask for help early. And like I said earlier, that assumption that you know how to manage, that is the one that's going to bite you from behind. So we have the resources. We have disability services. We have a counseling center. We have a career center. We have tutoring, Center for Excellence, where all kinds of services. We may not have the big numbers that the larger schools may have, but we have it all here, and we're here to support you. And so ask for help early before you run into trouble. So when I was thinking about giving this talk, I was thinking back to my days as a transfer student. I started out at a 4-year, very large public school in a rural area. And I decided it was too rural and too big. And so I transferred to a city school that was private, that was much smaller. And it was a much better fit for who I was at the time. And I was thinking back, and I realized I took my own advice without even knowing that it was my advice. I did two things. One was I got involved outside the classroom. Because I was in D.C., I got involved with the political campaign of my senator. And I got involved outside the classroom with a faculty, and I worked with one of the faculty. And it was a time in my life where I really transitioned into deciding I wanted to be a psychologist by working with a psychology faculty member. So it made a world of difference for me in that transfer experience. So just to summarize, and before I take your questions, set your goals early. Use what resources are available. Step out of your comfort zone and get involved. And reach out and ask for help. So follow these guidelines, and I think that completing college